So you've got two different groups of talkbacks that have been built here. So basically, if talkback group 2 is on, then you're speaking to the in-ears. Talkback group 1 is on, then you're speaking to the monitors. And by default, they were both on, but you can choose who you're talking to. And then you have this talk button here. Right now, it's set to be on and off as a latching switch, but I can also go into settings and turn that off, and then it's only on when I'm holding it, and it will go off when I let go of it. So you have to hold it to talk. So that's a preference that you can decide on either way. Your talkback is plugged into the back here in socket number 1, because it tells me that right here. So wherever your microphone is, probably this one, that's where your talkback plugs in. So if you ever did need to talk to a different area, you can just turn it on here, and you can trigger these groups from soft keys if you want. We'll look at setting up soft keys in a little bit. You've got 8 mute groups that you can build. So you've got 8 tabs across the top, and then if you want to put something in a mute group so that you can mute a lot of things simultaneously. One thing I did notice yesterday on the other ship, I'm seeing it here again today, it's a really good idea to have an all mute, basically so that if there was a show going on and there was some sort of, anything happened, that you could mute all of the channels really quickly with just one button. So that's just a recommendation that I would make, that you could build an all mute so that you could very quickly, push one button and it would make everything stop. Obviously, you wouldn't include the announcements and things like that in that all mute, but it would just kill everything on stage simultaneously. Also helpful just before the show starts, when people are putting on their microphones and things like that, you can have everything muted and then you can turn them all on with one button. So you've got 8 mute groups that you can build in there that way. Next tab over here is the signal generator. This is test noise, so you can use this to test speakers. So if I was to do this, for example, I would turn this up to 0 and then unmute it, and then I could fire this on the right, and then I could fire it on the left, just to make sure that those things are working, So you can do that in here for test noise, but you can also assign this pink noise to a channel, which I think is better. So you could find any empty channel or just drag down an empty channel, and then if you go to the preamp here and look under the sources, signal generator is the one there, and then that would mean that this channel is pink noise. So instead of having to come into here to do it, you would just have a channel that you could send to the speakers to test, and it's very helpful for your monitors and your IEMs and things like that, just to make sure that they're working and you're sending it the right place. Okay. You don't have any controllers, so I'm going to skip that. So that is the main parameters for setting up the mix rack itself, which is the most important, highest level settings. From here, the next thing that I would be looking at would be labeling and patching things, and we're going to do both of those things in the I/O. It stands for inputs and outputs, so that's where we're managing everything coming and going from the console. So in the I/O, we have this grid patch bay here. Sorry, one thing that I just want to save a show really quick, so that anything that I change, I can put back when I'm done. Forgot to do that when I started. We'll come back to storing shows, but I just want to make sure if I move or change anything, that I can put it back easily. Okay, so in the I/O, we have this grid here. We've got tabs across the top for outputs and inputs, so we can see everything coming and going. So if we look at inputs, we can see everything that's coming in here. I like to label things before I start trying to patch, because it's easier to look at known labels instead of ambiguous numbers. I mean, you've got hundreds of channels in here, so if I do want to name things, very easy to just touch one of these boxes and it will bring up the keyboard, and then you can type and then hit the next one and type and next one, and you can just work your way down and label things. You can change the label colors on one at a time as you go if you want to do that. And then we do have some preferences in here, and you've got preferences all over the mixer, and they're triggered by this setup button here. So right over here it says setup. If I press and hold that, you can see there's menus everywhere to change preferences about things. So if I go in the patching options, I have some options of how this works. So if I do confirm when reassigning, you're changing this patch. Are you sure you want to do that? It's a good idea, I think, to leave that on. And then you've got this only patch when the patch button is pressed. What that does is that if I touch something, it's not going to patch. I have to actually touch and hold, and it goes from navigate mode to patch mode in there. So then now I can actually patch. So that's a preference. I like this. Some people don't like it because you need two hands to do a patch. So if you turn that off, then you would just navigate carefully, and then you just touch the box that you want, and it would patch. Okay. The other thing that's in here is use full screen. I really like this one. I don't need all of that stuff when I'm patching, so I would rather have the bigger patch bay. It's just much nicer to see. And then I'll show you what allow multiple tabs does, but I wouldn't turn it on because everyone screws it up. So if you turn that on, well, by default, you choose a source and a destination, and it will auto cancel, so you only have one source and one destination showing at a time. If you have allow multiple tabs on, like we do right now, you can end up in a scenario where you have a lot of sources and a lot of destinations, and you end up with a patch bay that's 800 channels across, and it's really, really difficult to manage. So I don't recommend that one at all. So if I turn that off, then now it shows me one source and one destination only, and it's a manageable chunk of the patch bay. Okay, so I've got sources at the mix rack, which is anything plugged in down there. So the locals are the actual preamp sockets on the rack itself, and then I've got expanders. So this is your drum box here, and then this is your other satellite box, and then you've got the card slots. And then also on the surface, you've got locals on the back here with some things of analog and AES. And then if you did have expanders, it would be there. And then you can have card slots on the back of the surface as well. So you just got a lot of different locations for where things patch in. So similarly on outputs, we've got all of our buses here. So these are our groups, and then our mono auxes, and then stereo auxes, and then on down to the mains, and then we've got a record matrix and another spare matrix down here for something else if you need it. So again, if you wanted to label these, just touch the box and it will bring up the keyboard. And then we've got all of the patch information. All of these are going out to Dante because that's IO port 1. The other thing that we can do in the setup here is label these. So for example, IO port 1 is Dante, so you may not know what IO port 1 means. So you could label this Dante, and then it would say Dante there instead of, or you could label it outputs to monitors or whatever. You know, you can name it whatever you want to name it. That's helpful for you to remember. So you might want to consider labeling those just so that it's a little easier to know what is what. Okay.